Today I'm going to be trying a new style of video that's a little bit more unscripted. I got a few bullet points here that I want to talk about. I'm going to be just giving my thoughts on the Pokémon Presents that happened earlier today. There was a lot of good stuff in the trailers. They're using the updated visuals from the Switch OLED trailer, which is awesome because in the original trailer, I remember the backpack was one, they compared, it was just a flat, it would look like basically just a plane, as in a 2D plane, not an airplane, but now it's got actual dimensions. It looks a lot better. The whole vibe of the game, the backgrounds as well, they look a lot better. Battles don't look any different. The art style, I personally kind of like it. I like it staying true to the old games, and that's kind of the point of these remakes. I don't want them to deviate too much. I like Link's Awakening was the one I'd compare it to. I like what they did there. Here they did comparatively less, but I think it still does work. People are pretty down on the art style, but I personally think it's good. I think it's a good representation of original Diamond and Pearl. In terms of the new features they added, story changes, it's pretty disappointing. It seems like it's just the original story of Diamond and Pearl with absolutely nothing being different from the original. When they started talking about Team Galactic in the trailer, I was kind of hoping they would, I saw a flash of, it looked like a bit of the cosmos that they were showing, a little, weird space and energy stuff. I thought that was going to be more Distortion World stuff. That would have been really cool if they brought back the Distortion World, because that wasn't in the original games. That was, part of the Platinum game. It was definitely the better game, especially because of the decks, and that's a nice segue into the next part of this. What I wanted to talk about was the new features. They didn't talk about the decks being updated at all. At least I don't care about the national decks, that doesn't matter, but as long as they have the platinum decks, you don't have 3 fire type options. Hopefully that's the case. I don't know if it's gonna be. In fact, I doubt it will be, but if it isn't, that'll be really disappointing. But in terms of the other new features they were talking about, the more minor one for me was the ball customization. That doesn't really matter to me, but the two bigger ones were the contests being revamped, which looked cool. I mean, personally, I don't care about it as much because I don't have as many gameplay implications. It's more it looks more like a rhythm game, the way the button was kind of clicking, the Pokeball icon when they were dancing. It looked like that game Piano Tiles on your phone. The way you would kind of hold the button and it would kind of click. It looks like that. So you have to do the rhythm game. You'll have to press the button at the right times and the Pokemon will dance, and then you can unleash a super special contest move or whatever. It looks cool, don't get me wrong, but I don't particularly care about it because it doesn't really affect the main gameplay loop at all, or the story. It's fun, it's a mini game, but that's not really what I would want to see change. But the change I do like is the change they made to the underground. The underground, they've kind of revamped it. You can make your own base, which you could do in the originals, but now it does more for the gameplay, because you can put statues in your base, and the statues you put in your base will make the Pokemon that appear in Pokemon Hideaways different. And the Pokemon Hideaways, I think, were by far the best addition to these games out of all of the stuff they talked about for Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. So when you go in to a hideout or a Pokemon Hideaway, it's like a little cave, but it can have different elemental themes. So there's an ice one, a grass one, fire one, and they all look awesome. They look really good. The lava and ice ones especially, they look super immersive. They look like just ice caverns, or it looks like you're inside of a volcano for the lava one. I think the lava one was my personal favorite. I just love the way the Pokemon were kind of clustering around the lava, they were just it was just giving them warmth, a fire pit would for us. It just looked really, really good. I think it kind of adds that immersion to the game. Sometimes you don't really get from Pokemon games. It feels like this is the Sinnoh's version of the wild area from Sword and Shield, and because these are Gen 8 remakes, or remakes that are in part of Generation 8, they obviously want to keep it close to Generation 8. They didn't bring back Dynamax, and because obviously it wouldn't make sense with the story, but the other big thing in Sword and Shield besides Dynamax was the wild area, and Pokemon Legends Arceus obviously is using a lot of those concepts, and it makes sense with the type of game that it is. But for this one, it was unclear as to how they would implicate that in the game, because it's still a traditional Pokemon game. They did make it work. They kind of used a section of the game that was important in the original games, but at least to me it felt more throwaway. But now they've kind of put Pokemon in there. It's like an actual location that's worth going into and exploring. And it's like it's a wild area basically. It's not as big, but it's a tiny wild area. Like the Pokemon are roaming around. The encounters are like they're overworld encounters now, and I think it's a lot better this way because it adds to the immersion of the games. You're kind of sneaking into these Pokemon's hideouts, and you're going to explore and try and see. It's almost like you're observing them in their natural habitats more so than you would by just looking at them, even if they were overworld encounters in the wild. So I think that looks really cool. That is my personal favorite addition to these games. Now I want to go in and talk a little bit more. I'll probably talk for longer about it, but the Pokemon Legends Arceus, and wow, this looked a lot better. Visually, it's just like, it looks so good. Just going off of what I remember, like the Pokemon aren't moving at 5 frames per second anymore. They're actually moving. They look like actual Pokemon. They look like creatures that are living in the world. The landscapes look really good from a distance. I don't want to say they look better than Breath of the Wild, but I would say it looks more like Monster Hunter Rise, and that's something I want to get into in just a minute. I don't know what it is, but to me it looks not better. It looks more realistic than Breath of the Wild. Maybe that's just part of the art style, but like especially the rocks, like the rocks in Breath of the Wild, like the Breath of the Wild is a phenomenal. It looks unbelievable. Like, don't get me wrong, but it still does feel cartoony in some ways. But the rocks, especially like when I compare like the landscape of this, like the rocks especially, they just look so much more realistic. Like that's the style they were going for. But I was talking about Monster Hunter Rise, actually, just because we're comparing this to Breath of the Wild. Everyone's been saying, oh, this is Breath of the Pokemon. Like, this is Pokemon of the Wild. Like, this is Breath of the Wild, but Pokemon. That's the whole thing, right? Like, even the shot of, like, the character, like, panning around them, and, like, they stare forward at, like, the giant structure in the distance. Like, that looks like this cover of Breath of the Wild, like, Link staring away at the big structure in the distance, or, like, the big... Well, there it's man-made, but here it's like Mount Coronet. But to me, this, I don't know if it was just me, but it gave off more Monster Hunter Rise vibes. I don't know if any of you guys have played Monster Hunter Rise, but I don't know what it was. I mean, I know what the features were. I can talk about them. I'll talk about them in a second, but just generally, I got a lot more Monster Hunter Rise vibes. I'll go through why now. Like, so to start, it actually has crafting, right? Like, that was, like, this is just a way for me to talk about the new features. Just go through it, but, like, it has crafting. I love that. You're going into the world and you can collect all these items in the wild, like apricorns and, like, little stones, and you can use them to build a Pokeball. You can use them to make potions. You can use them to make medicine and fruit, or, like, food to feed your Pokemon in the wild and heal them. It's all these items you're collecting. It's like how in Breath of the Wild, you can't actually craft anything outside of meals and elixirs, but here you can actually craft items that help you in your adventure. And that's what you can do in Monster Hunter Rise. You collect, like, you collect those herbs, and you can turn those into potions in the wild while you're out hunting, and you can turn them into monster crap, and you can turn it into, like, a dung bomb or, like, a stink bomb that'll make you more, like, you smell more attractive to monsters. I don't remember, but you can find all these different kind of herbs and creatures, and you can turn them into stuff. You can turn these things you're finding in the wild into useful items in game, and I think that's gonna make Pokemon, like, I think it's gonna make it's gonna make the gameplay feel a lot more rewarding on a consistent basis. Like Breath of the Wild, when you complete a quest, it feels really rewarding, but as you're going through the quest, it doesn't feel like you're getting little satisfactions out of the things you're doing. Like, you collect all these objects, it's like, I can't put them towards anything besides, like, just getting a buttload of rupees, and, like, once you have so many weapons and elixirs and all of this. But in Pokemon, you can keep making these items and keep using them. They're consumables, so you keep having the need to make more, so it creates a gameplay loop that you want to keep diving back into. And that's why I think it's a lot like Monster Hunter Rise. Maybe not quite on as large of a scale, because at least as far as I know, you can't, like, craft weapons and armor and stuff, because you don't use weapons and armor in this game, because, you know, it's your Pokemon that are doing the fighting. But we'll get to that in a second. You can actually get injured, but I'll get to that in a little bit. But so you go to this village, right? It's Jubilife Village in this game. It's obviously Jubilife City is the biggest city in Sinnoh in the newer games. But I think this game, it's called the Hisui region. It's just still a village, and as of right now, it's the only civilized village that we know about in this Hisui region. and it feels a lot like Kamura Village in Monster Hunter Rise, which is your base of operation. And I think another part of that is just like, again, like the village is just your base of operation. You go back there, you get missions from there. People in the village will give you missions. Like I think there was one guy, like the captain of like Team Galaxy, whatever it was. Team Gusty Guard Galaxy. I'm just kidding. Team Galaxy was giving you a mission. You come back and you like it's just Wurmple can evolve now. Like you still do get rewards from these missions as you periodically complete them. So that's a lot like Monster Hunter Rise, how there's all these things to do in the village. Like you get items, you heal, they're like the chief of the exploring committee is there. Like the village itself also feels really isolated. It's the same with Jubilife in Pokemon Legends Arceus. I think that both of these villages kind of give off the same vibes. And the other thing that I just have to mention now, it's like the feudal Japan thing. Like both of these games are going for that. Like Casino is a region that's based off of Japan, because like the first 4 regions in Pokemon based off of Japan. Kanto's based off of Kanto region, like Johto, Hoenn, Sinnoh, those are all based off of Japan. Then you got Unova based off of New York, Kalos, France, Alola, Hawaii, and then so Sinnoh is ancient Japan, and I think Mount Coronet is supposed to be Mount Fuji. I don't know that for sure, don't quote me on that, but I think that's what it's supposed to be. Because it's ancient Sinnoh, it becomes ancient Japan, which I love. I really, really love that. It's like you're still keeping those parallels up, like you set up in the universe. It's like that lore, it built into the game as you go through it, like it is with, say, Breath of the Wild, like the lore of the universe, or even Monster Hunter. As you go through, you find like these ancient ruins and those the shrine and stuff like that. It's like, I think that's build like that just helps build into the lore. But both of those games, Monster Hunter Rise and Pokemon Legends Arceus, are going for that feudal Japan vibe, which makes it feel a lot more samey. I mean, it's not a bad thing. Monster Hunter Rise is a phenomenal game. I love it a lot. And but both of these games are going for that kind of feudal Japan vibe, which again makes them feel really similar to each other. And the other thing is, like, so in each location in Monster Hunter Rise, you've got like these kind of mini base camps where you can go back to and heal, you can take a break if you need, and you can restock on items. You can do that in Pokemon. You can go back to those base camps, you can craft items, you can heal yourself and your Pokemon. So those base camps feel really similar. I don't know for sure. It seems like this is going to be a completely open world experience, but to me it might seem like it's like Monster Hunter Rise, where you start out in that base camp and then you go to specific areas and you adventure, and those areas are completely open, but they're not connected. But I don't think that's the case, just because of the way the map was displayed. It's like you have a camp. These are missions that take a lot of time. It's like this is a really grueling job. It's again just like that little addition of like a base camp that you can just come back to, that's not like the main base. It just adds to that immersion. It makes you feel like you're doing a really tough job that not everyone is cut out for. And I think it just really, it looks like Game Freak is putting a lot of care into the building of this game, in terms of the universe. And that's why I think it gets a lot of Monster Hunter vibes instead of Breath of the Wild. We haven't actually seen the ability to climb yet. You can dive, you can ride on Pokemon, which I haven't talked about yet, but I'll talk about the more new features in a minute. But I just want to quickly talk about the Monster Hunter comparison. But the last 2 things is, I'll talk about quickly the riding Pokemon. That looks really cool. I think the shot where like the character dives off the cliff and then gets kind of picked up by the Braviary evolution, that was awesome. It looked really epic, and you can kind of carry on these different types of you can ride on like the Stantler evolution. I forget what it was called. It was like Weirdeer or something, like the Basculin evolution. I can't remember what it's called, but like you can actually ride on these Pokemon, and it feels different than ride Pokemon in Sun and Moon. But it feels like it does feel like Breath of the Wild, because it's like it takes all these features that Pokemon was like starting to implement, like the ride Pokemon in Sun and Moon. Like it started to implement that, the wild area and Sword and Shield, and it's kind of feels like it's bringing them all together and executing them properly. Like Breath of the Wild did, like you had the stamina system in Skyward Sword, the shield surfing in Twilight Prince. Like it experimented with a lot of things that the rest of the series tried to do it, but now Pokemon Legends Arceus is kind of bringing them to fruition. Like the riding the Pokemon, it feels like it has more of a purpose now. Like ride Pokemon were cool, but it always felt like they were more of a progression tool than just something that supplemented your gameplay, and it just kind of made the world feel more immersive. Like the ride Pokemon did make the world feel more immersive than just HMs, but I do think that the way they're implemented in Legends Arceus looks a lot, like it looks even better than ride Pokemon. And the last thing I wanted to touch on was the battling. That looked awesome. That looked like that was, to me, that was the best feature they showed in the entire, like the way they, like the strong style, like there's more strategy to the attack, each individual attack. Like obviously when you're doing battles in Pokemon, there's obviously strategy to each attack, but now what kind of attack to do, because there's a way to, like, the speed stat is even more important than it was before. Like if you have a fast Pokemon, you can do a setup move and attack immediately after, and if you have like a slow Pokemon who you know is already gonna get hit, you can use the strong style move to get a huge power attack that just does a lot of damage, or you can use it as like a finishing move. It makes the gameplay feel a lot more dynamic, or it will, I hope. And I think that the battles, and also the way you can just kind of throw your Pokemon out, like, and send it out to start a battle, kind of like how it feels more like, it's more immersive. This whole game is just immersing you more into the Pokemon world than previous entries in the series did. It's really, this game just looks really good. And yeah, that's all of my thoughts on the Pokemon Presents from today. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like, and if you want to see more videos like this, be sure to let me know. And if you want to see more videos from me generally, consider subscribing, as it does help. I hope you enjoyed this video, and thank you for watching.